Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. We have been using the area model for subtracting fractions, which is a great method. It's not the most efficient method, though, if your numbers are larger. So tonight's lesson is on subtracting fractions using the algorithm. Okay, and obviously that is our goal then. So the only vocab word we have tonight is a review word, what the Lcm Lcd is. And remember, that stands for least common multiple, which is the same thing as our least common denominator. And just like in the area model where you had to make the models match, you were finding common denominators. You have to have common denominators to add and subtract fractions. Okay, so how do I do this? Well, if my problem was 3/6 plus 2/4, these denominators are not the same, so I can't add. So what would I have to do is I'd have to find the least common multiple. Multiples are my multiplication facts. So I'm going to list my multiplication facts for 6. 6 times 1 is 6, 6 times 2 is 12, 6 times 3 is 18. Then I'm going to list my multiplication facts for 4. 4 times 1 is 4, 4 times 2 is 8, 4 times 3 is 12. And I found my least common multiple or multiplication fact, which is 12. So I would rewrite my problem with that as my new numerator. And this I set up as an addition problem. It would be the same for subtraction. And then I say, how did I get from 6 to 12? 6 times 2 is 12, so 3 times 2 is 6. How did 4 become 12? By multiplying by 3. And that is what I would end up with. So just quick reminder that you're going to have to find the Lcm Lcd. Just like we did with addition, now we're going to be doing it with subtraction. Okay, another quick reminder is borrowing. There will be problems that you'll need to borrow. So the way that we had practiced this in the last video is if you have something like 5 2/7 and I need to borrow, I take 1 away from the whole number, which means this becomes a 4. And I turn that 1 into a fraction that's worth 1. So for this problem, because I have a 7, I would turn it into 7/7, which is the same as 1 whole. So what I really have is 4 9/7. So that was how we borrowed. We took 1 from the whole, we wrote it as a fraction, and then we rewrote it in adding. And then just a quick reminder about simplifying is you always simplify using the GCF, but you can do the GCF two ways. You can list factors to find it, or you can count backwards. And that's the method that I've been modeling for you. So if I had something like 6/15, I would ask myself, is 6 my GCF? Does it fit into both of them? Nope. So then I try 5. Is 5 my GCF? No. 5 fits into 15 perfectly, but not 6. And GCF means common, remember? Is 4 my GCF? Nope. Is 3 my GCF? Yes. 3 fits into this perfectly 2 times and this 5. So my GCF is 3. So I'm getting 2/5. So that's a method that I like, or you could list the factors. Okay, so what are our steps? Our first step is, just like when we added, we're going to set it up vertically. You're going to notice these steps are very similar to adding. So we set it up vertically. Then we find our Lcm Lcd and we rewrite the problem using this as your new denominator. So you're going to have to do this step for every problem. And remember, whatever you do to the denominators, you do to the numerators. So just like up here, I multiply the denominator, so I had to multiply the numerators. Okay. So the new thing that's different from adding is you might have to borrow. So it's going to be borrow if needed. Because just like in all subtraction, you don't always borrow. It's only when you need to. Then we're going to subtract. It's not written here, but remember we subtract and we always do fractions first. So quick reminder, just like we did with the area model. And then we're going to simplify using any strategy. So you can choose which one of these you prefer. Okay, so what does this look like? Well, if you remember how to add fractions, it's going to look very similar to adding. Okay, so I'm going to change colors now. Okay, my first problem is 3/4 take away 1/3. So I'm going to set it up vertically. 3/4 take away 1/3. Okay, my next step says I'm going to find the LCM Lcd. So 4 and 3 are different, so I can't do it. I have to come over on the side, and notice I come way on the side. And I'm going to list out my multiples. So 4 times 1, 4 times 2, 4 times 3, 4 times 4. 3 times 1, 3 times 2, 3 times 3, 3 times 4. And I found it. It is 12. So I'm going to rewrite this with 12 as my new denominator. How did 4 turn into 12? By multiplying by 3. So 3 times 3 is 9. How did 3 turn into 12? By multiplying by 4. So I'm getting 4. Okay, now they have the same denominator, so I can move on. Next, I borrow if needed. I don't need to borrow. So I subtract fractions first. 9 take away 4 is 5/12, and I don't have any whole numbers to subtract. And then I simplify. So I'm going to count backwards. Is 5 my GCF? No. Is 4 my GCF? No. 3? No. 2? No. And 1 doesn't help me, so I know I can't simplify it, and that is my answer. Okay, let's try another one. Okay, I'm going to set it up vertically. Now this one's going to look really weird, so pay close attention. Okay, I know that looks odd. The reason it looks like that is because when you set up your problem, you need to line up fractions and whole numbers. So they have to be, so because of that, there's these gaps. And that's okay. That's how you would want to set that up. Okay, next it says find the LCM Lcd. Well, there's only one denominator, so just like with the area model, when there was only one, I couldn't make them match. So I don't need to make them match. So I'm going to go on. Number 3, borrow if needed. Well, I have blank take away 5/7, so I really need to borrow. So I'm going to come over here and take 1 away from the whole, and I'm going to turn that 1 into a fraction that's worth 1. Now, because this is my denominator, I want to work with that. So I have 1 7/7 take away 5/7. So if you think about it, it was just like we did with the area model. I took 1 whole and I just cut it up. Okay, now I am going to subtract fractions first. So 7/7 take away 5/7 is 2/7. 1 take away nothing is 1. And now I'm going to simplify. Is 2 my GCF? No. And then 1 doesn't help me. So I am done. Okay, tonight I'm doing 3 problems instead of 2, just because it's such a new, difficult concept. Okay, so step 1, I'm going to set it up vertically. And notice again that I'm lining up my fractions and lining up my whole numbers. See how neat that is? Okay, step 2, let's look at my steps. I'm going to find my LCM Lcd. So for 2 and 7, let's come over here and find it. Let's list our multiples. 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4, 2 times 5, okay. 7 times 1, 7 times 2, 7 times 3. Okay, wow, my 7s are getting big and I don't have it. So I'm gonna go back to my 2s. 2 times 1, 2, 3. Okay, I'm at 2 times 6, 2 times 7, and I found it right there. It's 14. Okay, so make sure you rewrite the whole numbers also. That was a mistake that a lot of people made in adding. Notice when I rewrite my whole numbers. Okay, so how did my 2 turn into 14? Times 7. So I get a 7 there. How did my 7 turn into a 14? Times 2. So I get a 12. Okay, so that was a long step 2. Let's look at step 3. Borrow if needed. Well, I have 7 14ths, take away 12 14ths. That's not going to be possible. So I am going to need to borrow. So I'm going to take 1 away from the whole. I'm going to turn that 1 into a fraction that's worth 1. So for this problem, I'm going to use the fraction 14 14ths. I kind of wish this wasn't so close. I'm squishing my work. Okay, so what do I have? I have 1 and 7 14ths plus 14 14ths is 21 14ths. Take away 1 and 12 14ths. Okay, so 21 let me check my steps really quick. Sorry, I'm going ahead. Now I borrowed, so now I'm going to subtract fractions first. 21 take away 12. If you can't do that in your head, you can come over here and do some side work. You should get 9 14ths. And 1 take away 1 is 0. So I can put nothing or I can put a 0. Okay, my last step says I'm going to simplify using any strategy. So is 9 my GCF? Nope. 8? No. 7? No. 6? No. 5? No. 4? No. 3? No. And I'm coming up with nothing but 1 works. So I am done. My answer is 0 and 9 14ths. Okay, I know that was a lot of watching me, so now grab your pencil and let's try some together. Okay, my first one is this problem. I'm going to zoom in a little bit. Okay, you have your steps next to you so you can refer to them. It is 2 and 2/3, take away 1 and 2/5. Okay, that was step 1. Step 2 is we need to find our LCM Lcd. And for 3 and 5, I can come way over here and do it, or I could come over here, but I'm going to do it over here. 3 and 5, I get 3 times 1. Oops, you can't see it. 3 times 2, 3 times 3, 3 times 4, 3 times 5. 5 times 1, 5 times 2, 5 times 3, and I found it to be 15. So I'm going to set up my problem. And I'm going to find my new numerators. So 3 times what equaled 15? 5. So I'm getting 10. 5 times what equals 15? 3. So I'm getting 6. Okay, my next step is borrow if needed. So 10 take away 6, I don't need to borrow. So my next step is just to subtract. 10 take away 6 is 4 15ths. And 2 take away 1 is 1. And my final step is to simplify. So is 4 my GCF? No. 3, no. 2, no. I cannot simplify. I have not been able to simplify any of these tonight. Okay, let's try our next one. Okay, don't get confused with this too. The problem is 2 2/5 take away 1 2/3. Okay, so that was step 1. Step 2 is to find my LCM Lcd for 5 and 3, but you know what? We just found it. We found 5 and 3's LCM Lcd is 15, so I don't think we need to redo it. We could just steal that we know it's 15. There's no reason to work harder. Okay, so what are our new denominators, or numerators? 5 times what is 15? 3. So 2 times 3 is 6. 3 times what is 15? 5. So 2 times 5 is 10. Okay, so that was step 2. Step 3 is borrow if needed. 6 take away 10. Oh, you're going to have to borrow. So we're going to take 1 away from the whole. We're going to turn it into a fraction that's worth 1. So for this problem, it's going to be 15 over 15. And then we're going to add up what we have. So we have 1 6/15 plus 15/15 is 21/15. Take away 1 10/15. Okay. So our next step is we're going to subtract fractions first. 21 take away 10 is 11/15, and 1 take away 1 is 0. And our final step is we're going to simplify. So I'm going to start with 11 and count backwards and see if any work. And hopefully you are doing that in your head with me. I'm doing it in my head, and I'm realizing none of them work, which means it's already simplified. Okay, let's try another one. We're zooming through these tonight. Okay, step 1. Okay, step 2, what is the LCM Lcd of 2 and 5? Let's come over here and list out our multiples. 2 times 1, 2 times 2, 2 times 3, 2 times 4, 2 times 5, 2 times 6. 5 times 1, 5 times 2. Oh, I found it. It's 10. Okay, so let's come over here and set up our problem. Okay, how did the 2 turn into 10? Was times 5. How did the 5 turn into 10? Was times 2. Okay. So that was step 2. Now I'm on step 3, borrow if needed. 5 take away 4, I can't borrow, which is good because there's no whole numbers to borrow from. Step 4 is to subtract fractions first. So 5 take away 4 is 1/10. And my last step is to simplify, but if you remember, you can never simplify when there's a 1. So that is my answer. Okay, the last one we're going to do together, this is that weird one when we set it up. It's going to look like this. Okay, because remember we line up fractions and whole numbers. Okay, step 2 says to find the LCM Lcd, but you can't. You can't find common denominators when there's only one denominator. So step 3 says to borrow if needed. Definitely need to borrow. Nothing take away 2/7 is not possible. So to borrow, I'm going to take 1 from the whole, and I'm going to turn it into a fraction that's worth 1. And remember, it's the denominator that determines how that fraction is going to be. So I now have 4 7/7. Take away 2/7. Okay, step 4 is to subtract fractions first. 7 take away 2 is 5/7. 4 take away nothing is 4. And my final step is to simplify. So is 5 my GCF? No. 4, no. 3, no. 2, no. Wow, we have not been able to simplify a single problem tonight. Okay, that was a really long video with a lot of practice. Okay, I hope you're feeling okay with this. If not, we will be practicing a lot next week. But you do have 4 problems to do, as well as rate your understanding. Have a nice night, ladies and gentlemen. Good night.